I thought you'd have Penn State to the chip.
I will probably wait till sometime that you have to turn it in. I filled out a lot of brackets on Thursday morning. Like you have to have it in by noon or you can't play. Yeah. And so yes, there have been times. This is a longer answer than you wanted. There have been times I've sat there like back in the day of the USA Today when they had good write-ups about every team you couldn't get it anywhere else. Yeah. That I would put in some time and read through it and stuff like that. But no, I will. It'll take me 7 minutes to fill out the whole thing. So because whenever I do,
you're going to go PSU.
Well, that's one of them.
All I want to do is feel awesome. All I want to do is feel awesome. All I want to do is feel awesome.
Where do you want to start today? The Oscars were interesting. March Madness is interesting with Penn State, North Carolina being left out. I think the bank thing is interesting. Biden just guaranteed everybody's money from the Silicon Valley Bank. The 4-day week that I told you about, the work week, is getting legislation. It's gaining ground. So lots of different things. Do you have one that you wanted to dive into? Is there something that you didn't even tell me about that you want to dive into?
Is there something I didn't tell you about? No, before we forget, I do want to mention, because I think we talked about this. We talked about it with Joe Smith when he was in, but he wasn't on the air with us. He did his segment with you. I did watch Till over the weekend, which is about, it's an unbelievable story. He's right. It's mostly about the mom. Yeah. It's not nearly as like if they wanted to make it gruesome, they could have, and they didn't. So it is very palatable, even for people with soft stomachs like myself. Weak stomachs, I guess, is the word we're looking for. But you should check it out sometime when you get a chance.
I will eventually. We finished Last of Us last night. It was the season finale. It's pretty good. The season finale ended almost identical to the video game, which is very controversial. So 10 years ago, the video game came out, and the ending was very, some users loved it, some players didn't love it. Same thing happened with the show last night. A lot of people felt very kind of empty-handed. They felt like they weren't given what they wanted or what they deserved. Other viewers kind of felt like, wow, that was really good television. It left me asking a lot of questions. I'm excited for the second season. So,
and you were in which part?
I didn't expect that to be the ending. I have never played the video game. So I was surprised by the ending of the first season of The Last of Us. I'm still kind of coming to grips with it. I'm not sure if I agree or disagree with one of the main characters of the show, because there is certainly questions. So I don't want to give anything away, because I'm hoping you will watch the show. I'm hoping.
I might give it a shot.
We'll leave it at that. Let's do the 4-day work week. Can we do that first?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So the 4-day work week, it's gaining ground. It's gaining legislation. California is actually trying it out in some public schools. There's a handful of states that are actually trying to push legislation forward for a 4-day work week. You had said to me, and I think I agree with you for the most part, you had said to me that you think this will be a struggle, and the main reason is going to be the structure of how schools work, just parenting, having someone being able to watch their kid, and you think that is going to be the main crux, despite maybe all of the advantages that a 4-day work week could possibly have.
That was the immediate one that I said was it won't work because of the school system. Okay. I could see how the rest of society could adjust to it. But see, you even think of this because not everything, still restaurants and bars and shopping centers and movie theaters and those places are going to be open. So it's not like the delivery trucks can only work 4 days a week.
Sure.
Because you can't do your last delivery on a Thursday with fresh produce and work through the weekend.
Right.
So there could be some corporate jobs that shut down, but there's a lot of them that just can't.
I think it would. So some of the things that it would naturally do, and I don't even know if these are net positives or net negatives. I mean, one of the things it would do is it would have to create more jobs, because essentially if you're implying that there's a maximum amount of hours that are expected, what a lot of these companies are going to do, like you said, shipping, delivering, things like that, they're still going to have a 7-day work week, The difference will be you're going to have to pick up some people to pick up the shifts that you lose from the people rolling back from 5 days to 4 days, right? So you're going to naturally create employment. However, though, like our employment numbers are pretty good right now from a sense of like job creation. Like there's more jobs available now than there have been in years or past terms. So I don't even know if that's a huge benefit to it as well. California trying it in a couple of public schools will be interesting, just to see how that works out with the schools. Teachers, it would be interesting as well too.
Yes, I'm researching here, but I'm listening to everything you said.
Teachers would be interesting because not implying like, I don't want to say it like you already get the summers off, but teachers would be interesting because your salary right now is based off of X amount of days because you have the summers off. It would be interesting to see in industries like education, because I'm sure they're not the only one. It'd be interesting to see what would happen if you cut off. I mean, you would be cutting off probably anywhere from 35 to 40 work days. So it would be interesting to see how that would play out salary-wise.
Well, one of the other things about education that we've talked about is studies have shown that starting the day later and letting the kids sleep in longer has made them better.
Yeah.
So if you are chopping off a day, are you extending the other days? And if you're extending the other days, what does that do to extracurriculars? And what is that? Are they more exhausted on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday?
Mm-hmm.
So
two
yes.
things there. My dad did 410s during the summers. He did that quite a bit, and he loved it. I mean, he would prefer the 410s.
While he was working for himself, or while he worked for?
While he worked for a private company, a utility company.
Okay.
And he loved the 410s. I mean, if he could have done the 410s all year long, round, he would have done it. Just to get the full extra third day off, to just have your time. And
I can imagine.
So that aspect will be interesting. Is people try to shift hours around? The other part, what were you mentioning before that? You brought up, I forget what I was going to say with it.
About education and the longer days and the shorter days.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting. I think I'm pro it. Are you pro it? Or
well, if it works, you take a place like North Central PA, the news doesn't stop. TV stations can't stop. When you think of there are a lot of companies in the world that are just like 9 to 5, and you have contract work and you can do your work but for the places who can't,
right?
Then there's just a lot of places who can't. And if you're in any sort of retail, the auto industry, I can't believe. And when people are fighting for, to spin this, I think there are some industries. I think we've seen changes in the restaurant industries a lot. There are a lot of places that aren't open for lunch that used to be. Right. There, and it's a fallout from COVID, from you can't get employees, but it's also people were forced to make changes. And a lot of these restaurants were like, oh my God, we can't be not open for lunch. And then after they were, and they eased back in, and they said, you know what, our world is better. Yeah. We may make a little less, but our staffing is easier, and our overall headaches, and our life is better.
I think companies that delegate would be better at this. Like if you're not a delegator, or you're a company that would struggle with that, then this would be rough. This is not going to be easy for you. However, like if you're a company that can plug and fill, who can delegate all those things, it could very well, I think it could work. The other thing that I wanted to mention to you, I find the Monday, Friday thing fascinating, because I think when most people think of the 4-day work week, I think everyone assumes that the day is going to be Friday. And I don't know if I would necessarily choose that. I think I would make the third day Monday.
Why? I'm not disagreeing with you. But...
So if just a company, and there's been studies on this, I think one of the least productive days of the week is Monday. I think most people view Monday as like your recovery from the weekend.
Well, don't you think that would just become Tuesday then? And Tuesday would suck?
I think eventually, but I think early on, companies would get much more benefit having people stay home on Monday than having them coming up Friday. There's a buzz to Friday. Like there's just...
You think people are productive on Friday?
I think people are more productive on Fridays than early Mondays. Yes.
Well, I don't
think
know. I think
Mondays-
there's an after lunch on Friday. There's a lot of I've
maybe-
checked out.
Maybe the greatest scam is the wrong word. The thing that of the American public has wrongfully convinced companies is that they're super productive on Monday. They are not super. The American public is not productive on Monday.
I don't
They are
think the
not.
public's productive on Friday.
Interesting. But I think there's an energy to Friday where people are doing more than they are on Monday. I think Monday is a survival day. I think people are just trying to get through Monday.
I disagree. I think people who like what they do are ready to get back.
How many people in the country do you think
Like what they do and are ready to get
something
back?
that they like to do?
I don't know.
I'm just throwing it out there. I'm just saying, like, the grand assumption is it would be Friday, and I'm just here to say, like, I don't know. That's all I'm saying.
I do think too, and don't get me wrong, I'm in favor of it. The more I'm thinking about it out loud, you're right with there are the industries that don't stop, but as you're right, they just hire differently and overlap differently, and the people would still, but one of the things that we had discussed during COVID was the issues with people who are home more. We've talked about it with rock stars and people who are home more, and idle minds and idle hands, and so I would say there are a lot of especially kids who the best place for them to be is at school, and being at school is way better than being at home. Mm-hmm. So there are some of these kids who would probably want a 7-day school week, as opposed to having less.
You bring up a good point. One user said a lot of kids in poverty only get lunches at school. A 4-day school/work week could remove a much needed meal from them.
And I hadn't even read that.
Yeah.
So that person, we are on the same page.
Very, very good. Tastes like good. I'll take 4 10s over 5 8s every time. I think I would too. I think I would take the 4 10s over the 5 8s.
Well, what's interesting about it, and depending on what you've got going on in life and when we're busy and when we're not, and we all go through our cycles of busyness. There are days where, like today, I got a meeting at 1:30. I think I have a meeting at 4:30. Like this afternoon for me is really hectic. On the days that the evening is not hectic, I'll stay till 7 o'clock some nights just to get stuff done because you have nothing to rush to. So
but you kind of enjoy what you do for the most part.
Yeah, I mean.
Like if you were putting parts in a box and shipping them down the line, would you still feel like you want to stay till 7 o'clock?
No, I do get what you're saying, and I just had this conversation with somebody else. There is that aspect of the office environment when no one else is around, and all you can do is get stuff done. Or if you want to be lazy, nobody's watching you. But why would you hang out in the office and be late? But there is that element to be the only one around. I can't talk to anyone. I can't be bothered, and I can't be distracted, and I can just get stuff done. So I think most people in an office environment do like that.
Yeah, it's possible.
So it's an interesting thing.
Heather's throwing my theory out of whack. This is a good point, though, Heather. I used to work a 4-day week, and my day off was Wednesday. I loved it. I actually kind of like that.
I discussed that before, but then doesn't it make... Now, don't you? Because I think you think Monday's worthless. I think Friday's more worthless than Monday. Mm-hmm. And don't you then make 2 Fridays? Like, are you worthless Tuesday afternoon because you're going to be off the next day?
Maybe that's why Heather liked it.
Maybe that's why.
You might be giving Heather secret.
Because Monday she was worthless because she was recovering from the weekend.
Yeah.
Tuesday she was worthless because she was getting ready for Wednesday. Thursday she was worthless because she was recovering from Wednesday, and then Friday. So she was worthless 7 days and got paid for 4 of them.
Bogey says Friday is the survival day. I disagree. I think it's Monday. I think today is the day where everybody is just like they're just trying to rev the engine and just get me. Because again, I think some people are fortunate that they're excited about Monday. I think there's people that are excited to go do the thing that they get to do. I would argue the majority are not. Like the majority of people woke up today obligated to do the thing they're going to do. And so I think Monday is the survival day. I'm not saying you're wrong, but
it is. It would. I don't hate the Wednesday idea either.
I don't hate it. Now scheduling, it would be interesting to see how you would schedule around that, because does everybody for companies that get to work on an even flow, everyone off on Wednesday, it works, right? food, news, those different organizations. I don't know how the Wednesday thing would work. I don't know if it could work. I think the ebb and flow of the schedule would be too
If you have a
difficult.
big enough company,
Yeah,
you just have rotating days.
correct.
For a while, you're off Mondays.
Rotating weeks. You could rotate weeks. I hadn't thought of that.
Right. For a while,
I see what
this
you're
this
saying.
week you're off Monday. This week you're off Wednesday. This week you're off Friday.
Yeah.
I don't think you'd ever do Tuesday, Thursday. That would be a
It
mess.
depends how many people you have, right? You
But
could just rotate the whole.
You could just
the
rotate
whole
it
thing.
around, and you
Yeah.
could see which ones you like the most. Obviously, for people who travel and are big, the weekend's better.
Yeah.
But the weekend's better if you do a Friday or Monday. But for most of us, like I'm mostly a homebody, so I would like the Wednesday. Not that I wouldn't like the other ones.
Yeah.
But I also think
See, I think the Wednesday for me would be too solo. I like being able to package the three days. So
But if it's Wednesday, you never have more than a 2-day stretch.
I know
You can sprint it for 2 days, then you get a day off.
but that's not the stretch I'm concerned about. The stretch I'm concerned about are the time off.
And that's if you're because you do a lot more elaborate plan stuff on weekends than I do.
Yeah.
My elaborate plan stuff is a lot of which couch am I going to sit on?
Right.
Where do I want to go get something to eat?
Can we talk about the banks?
Yeah.
You want to talk about the banks? Have you been keeping track of the Silicon Valley?
I know
didn't
that.
until
I know
this
it's a
morning.
mess. I know people aren't getting paid.
I didn't until this morning. So here's just the really like nuts and bolts of it. Silicon Valley Bank, there was a run on the bank. They could not supply all of the funds that were being withdrawn. So part of this, and I did not know this, Silicon Valley Bank actually had some of the highest risk of any bank in the country. They actually federally insured only 6% of the funds that they were holding, which is very, very low. Just to put it into context, I looked it up this morning because I was curious. The top banks in Pennsylvania, PNC Bank is almost 55% federally insured. F&B out of Pittsburgh, 54%. Fulton Bank out of Lancaster, 67%. Locally or closer, People's Security Bank in Scranton, 91%. CNN in Wellsboro, 66%. First Citizens Community Bank, Mansfield is 61%. So just to put it into context, I mean, our banks here in Pennsylvania, most of them are almost 10 times higher federally insured than the Silicon Valley Bank that went under. One of the more interesting things that happened today, Biden actually came out and he made a statement that the banks were going to be, essentially the banks are safe is what he wants the American public to know. But one of the things that he said in the statement is that he's guaranteeing every dime that was put into the Silicon Valley Bank. I find that interesting for a couple of reasons. If you're a non-Biden supporter, this sounds ridiculous because the Silicon Valley Bank is mostly tech startups. It's people that are very well funded to begin with. And so the idea that you're guaranteeing every dime for them, especially after like 2008, different collapses, there were a lot of people that weren't guaranteed every dime out of the bank that they invested. Even look at FTX. There's people that are not going to get their money out of FTX. So for Biden to come and guarantee that, if you're a Biden supporter, this is his way of making sure that there's not a run on the banks. It's trying to secure up the American public and make sure that it doesn't happen to another bank, right? Try to get the fear out of the system and make sure people don't run on it. I lean more towards, obviously I'm biased, I lean more towards the idea of, I don't know why this is the time you're going to guarantee everybody's dime. It does feel a little bit lopsided, but I do understand if you're trying to stop the fear and you're trying to stop a run on the banks, I don't know what the solution would be.
See, I get both of your sides to that argument. Whenever I've become so cynical that whenever I see this decision, I think it's all just PR.
Okay.
I think it's all just what is the best, what is America going to respond the happiest to, and I don't think it has anything to do with financials or anything like that.
I do. I just don't get the point of insurance for large banks if the government just steps up and pays it out anyway. I'm struggling to make sense of that. This is a unique situation, though, like I said before, because I really tried to dive into some of these insurance numbers. Just, again, a little more context. almost every other bank in Pennsylvania, I say every other, like Silicon Valley Bank is in Pennsylvania, it's not, but almost every bank in Pennsylvania is over half federally insured. So to have 6% insured for the 16th largest bank in the country is like an anomaly. It's very unique. It's very different. But to me, the anomaly then almost shows, first of all, this bank was taking on an absurd amount of risk. And the people that were doing these loans, these were larger loans through companies that already have angel investors. They already have capital. They already have, essentially, it's not like people losing their homes in 2008. Like, these are actual companies that took on risk and it failed. So that's where I struggle with it. Not so much the insurance. I understand why they're insured. I just struggle with why this is the time now that we're going to back it up. And I get it. He doesn't want to run on the banks. I totally understand that.
Okay, I want to fire this out.
Go ahead.
Before we forget. This was wrestling states were this weekend.
Uh-huh.
We've obviously we always have a lot of kids in the area that do well in place, but at Brant Hare from Montgomery won a state title. Connor Heckman from Midwest won a state title. Reagan Milheim from Warrior Run won. Cade Winsberger from Meadowbrook. Connor Hare from Montgomery. I think Austin Johnson from Muncie. I think Cameron Milheim won too. I'm not sure about Cameron. We also had in AAA then, or whatever the next, is it AAA or Quad A or whatever, Luke Simcox from Central Mountain won. The Nasdio kid won. I can't remember his first name. His dad's the coach. He's the first from Williamsport. He's the first state champ of Williamsport since like 1990.
Okay.
But that would be, it's always a special moment because a lot of these guys, I know the Hare kids, their dad's a coach too. It is a unique, it's such a family sport that there's a lot of, like, most sports are kind of family sports, but in wrestling, it is a little different. To be the coach and watching your kid win a state title would be a unique event.
Yeah.
And and now all those kids can eat lunch today.
Yeah, which must be nice.
It's got to be. That's my biggest recruiting tool in basketball. You can eat lunch every day.
You can eat lunch. All right.
Oh, yeah. So I did want to mention that before we forgot.
Nice.
And because you said, is there anything you didn't mention?
Yeah.
And we were started, and I was like, I should have written. So I'm like texting, and I knew there was lists online, and I was trying to find it. So I like 10 seconds of prepreration would have helped me.
Yeah, I just thought maybe you'd do it at the beginning of the show and not like in the middle.
Well, I forgot.
That's fine.
Until you kind of said it, and then
I'll
felt
just
stupid.
Here's my list. I'll just cross. Mark doesn't care about the banks, so we'll just cross that off. What do you want? Oscars or March Madness? Go ahead. You pick. You didn't watch the Oscars, did you?
I did not. I saw Gaga sing
Okay.
because I'd heard about it, and she has a little bit of talent.
Yeah, no, she's very, very good.
A little bit. She's pretty good.
I only have two thoughts. Well, probably three. Jimmy Kimmel did it. I thought he was fine. I don't find Jimmy Kimmel hilarious, but I think he's fine. He did a joke at the end that I thought was hysterical. As he walked off the stage after ending the night, behind the curtain, they had one of those like workplace, like 0 days until incident. So he had a day or years since the Oscars had an incident, basically referring to the.
And he turned it to one.
And he turned it to one, which I thought was really simple and ingenious.
That is
I really appreciated that one. Brendan Fraser, Best Actor for The Whale. It's really his first ever this year, obviously, he's swept the lead actor categories. I dug in because I wanted to see. He really hasn't won anything before this year. I mean, he's got a couple of like really like random like teen stuff and things like that.
He kind of disappeared.
He did. So very happy for Brendan Fraser.
Did you see it?
The Whale? I haven't seen it. No.
I haven't. And it was one of those I came across. I need to see the Banshees of whatever. I started it and just wasn't mentally.
Yeah.
Because when there's a movie with accents, and I'm like, I gotta listen. So that I wasn't ready for that. I need to see the Banshees. Like I said, I just saw Till, which I know wasn't a big. I saw the Everything Everywhere All at Once. Have you seen that?
I haven't. It won last night though. That's
you need to be ready for that one too. Like you need to be engaged.
Okay. You
can't watch that while watching your phone and while watching a game, and you need to pay attention.
Just with the multiverse stuff.
So I've been hearing about The Whale for a year.
Right.
And kind of every time, I imagine it's slow. I imagine it's one of those Oscar-winning.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of got to be in the right mood for that. I'm not looking for something exciting, but I'm not too tired that it's going to put me to sleep.
Yeah. No, I agree. Everything All at Once winning. Everything Everywhere All at Once.
I think that's what it's called.
Everything Everywhere All at Once winning. I have not seen it yet. I will. The only other thing I wrote down here as like a talking point after watching them, I just don't. I get it's an award. It's arbitrary. Like it's a vote, right? And I understand that. So it's never going to be like this perfect science or anything like that. I don't understand the point of movie awards where you have arguably two movies. You could argue that there were two movies this past year that saved movies. Like they're the only reason people are still going to go to theaters and theaters are going to stay open.
Maverick?
I would argue Top Gun and Avatar saved movies. Avatar is the third highest grossing film of all time. So I understand that people may not, if you don't think those are the two best movies of the year, I get that. Like I'm not sitting here being like, you have to think. They were almost not recognized. I believe Avatar got best graphics, and then Top Gun got best sound. And I just don't understand how in a world where it's very clear society is telling you, like, this is it. Like, this is what movies are now today. They might not be what you want them to be, but to the voting society, like, clearly this is what people go to the movies to see. Clearly. There's no arguing it. And for those two movies to be almost, like, unrecognized, I just don't, what are we doing? Like, I don't really.
You want me to answer that?
Go ahead.
Because it's a question that's been asked for a million. Like, why do comedies never get, the hardest thing to do, make people laugh.
I get that. But not to cut you off, this is different because comedies don't save movie theaters and comedies.
Well, no, I get
and
that.
Comedies don't set records. So they don't. Name a comedy that set a record.
Okay. But there are lots of, I would say probably every year, there's a comedy that makes more money than the movie that wins Best Picture.
Well, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like, I understand that aspect of it.
So it just and I'll get to that. But in the history of movies, a comedy was never the best movie of the year. Like, there's never been one year that the best movie was a comedy.
No, probably. Here's what's funny. I agree with your argument. Like, I'm pro comedies, and they certainly get like pushed under. Yes, absolutely. So I'm not dismissing your argument, but I'm just saying, like, I think we had two movies in a very unique year that saved movie theaters.
Because it's too highbrow. It's too hoity-toity. It's one of the reasons I love Joe Smith. And I've said this to his face, and I probably said it on the air, so I'm not like just blowing sunshine. For a film critic, he likes movies. Yeah. And you get these people that, it's like the person who walks into an art studio or an art gallery who will tell you why this art is good and this art is bad. They haven't smiled in 3 days, and they think they're smarter than everyone else in the room. And for people to sit back and say that, and I like the creativity of Everything Everywhere All at Once, and I like I get it, but it was it better than Top Gun? No, it wasn't. There's a reason that everyone went to see Top Gun. Now, does it have to do with nostalgia? Does it have to do with all that? Yes, but there's still that, and I agree with you. But there's a level of when people think they're smarter than everyone else, they have to differentiate themselves from the pack. And if the pack says that Top Gun was great, then the people who are smarter, they're almost making themselves dumber by saying those people can see what I see. So they have to say, I see something that these people aren't smart enough to see. That's why they all went to see Top Gun when they should have gone to see this.
In most years, I agree with what you're saying. Like you said, like it's been a conversation for years, and I agree with that, all of that. This year was different. This was the year that arguably saved movies. And so for voters to not recognize that there were 1, 2, maybe even 3, because before Top Gun and before Avatar, Elvis was like a big deal. I just think to have 2 or 3 movies that very clearly brought people back to the theater, very clearly like people enjoyed it. People recognize it. People were like, this is why I go to movies. This is why I came back. And for them to basically just like poo-poo on it this year, like, I don't get it. Which you informed me the poo-poo platter is a good thing.
I
my
think the poo-poo platter is a delicacy.
Yes.
It's not. I don't think it's.
So I don't know. So maybe I just think the gap, like this is a bad example. When the NBA does voting for their All-Star game, the fan vote almost counts for a third. Maybe the Oscars needs a fan vote. Maybe there needs to be something to help balance it out, because I feel like it's never been more disconnected than it was this year. Well, I don't understand how those two movies can win 2 awards, given what we know, what they meant to theaters and to the cinematic view.
I've had this devil's advocate argument presented to me that the movies like Top Gun and Avatar, their award show is the box office, and that they can say, this is what we made and this is what wasn't there something special about Top Gun was number one? I say Top Gun, it was Maverick. Was number one on Memorial Day weekend and Labor Day weekend.
Okay.
And those are like these are phenomenal numbers that, hey, we won Best Picture, but we were number one on Memorial Day and Labor Day, and we were still number one. We won Best Picture, but we're the 3rd highest grossing film of all time. So there's the aspect of it's the way that the film industry continues to encourage people to make different artistic films that aren't just about superheroes and comic books, that they're trying to make films that aren't designed to make $500 million. So these other companies are going to be rewarded at the box office, but these companies are going to be rewarded with a trophy.
Okay. And that's why some of those production companies have gone under.
Exactly.
So here's the other part of it too. I don't have a ballot. You don't have a ballot.
But we should.
Do you know we should? Do you know the best way to judge my ballot?
By the box office.
By the box office. Because guess what I'm willing to spend on? Things that I want to see or things that I appreciate. And I'll go twice if it's good enough.
Absolutely.
So I don't know. Just the idea that the box office just means nothing to these people. It has to mean something.
It should.
It has to.
It absolutely should.
And especially this year. This is the year it should have meant something. If you had to pick the year for box office to matter, this was the one.
Don't you think there's also a level too where the Sylvester Stallones of the world and the Tom Cruises of the world they're not supposed to win. They're not the right person to win.
I mean, I get what you're saying. Well, so one of the conversations last night was about Jamie Lee Curtis, right? Because she won for Best Supporting, and their whole point, like, the beauty of her winning is she's not really like an Oscar actress. Like, she's horror, she's thriller, I think she did Freaky Friday. Like, it's not.
She was trading place. She played a prostitute in Trading Places.
It's like that's not really. And so when she won, it was kind of like, oh, like, and she did like the whole, like, I'm an actor. Did you see this or not? I forget what it was, but either in her speech or on her t-shirt or something, she basically said, like, I'm an actor, implying just because I don't do the movies you want me to do doesn't mean I'm not really good at what I
didn't know it was her when I watched the movie the first time.
So I just, like, at some point though, like, you're the ones that are like, we're not wrong. Like, the rest of us aren't wrong.
No. But we are. At some
point, the voters are wrong.
We are to them. Because if they agreed with us, then they would be that it's again, it's like with Joe, like, critics want to tell you why your opinion is wrong, because if they just agree with your opinion, then they have no value. So if the motion picture, whatever it is, the Hollywood Free Press, whoever votes, if they just voted along with the public, then what value are they? The public says Avatar. The public said Top Gun. The public loved Top Gun. Sequels, I know it's a sequel of 35 years later, and it's not your typical sequel, but nobody ever loves sequels like this. But they did. So if they just came out and said, yeah, Top Gun was the best movie of the year, well, that's what everyone said on Facebook for 6 months. So what value do these people have? They have no value unless they step in and say, no, yeah, Top Gun's cool, but this is art. And that's why they do it.
They only get to do it because Top Gun and Avatar saved their asses. That's why they get to do it.
Yeah.
They brought people back to the theater, and so next year there will be another Whale. There will be another Everything Everywhere. Like, that's the reason they get to do it.
It's like the coach who says, I know this guy's our leading scorer, but this guy, he's a defender and he rebounds and he's great, and this guy is our MVP. And you're like, no, he's not.
No.
He's an important player.
Sure.
He's a good role player, and without him, the team wouldn't achieve.
Yes.
But the guy who can drop 28 a night, I'll take him, and we'll figure out the rest.
No, listen, I agree.
Yep.
I agree. Let's end with some March Madness stuff. Penn State got in. I watched almost every game that they played in the Big Ten tournament. I think I saw almost every second of it. Really, really exciting. They did get a bad draw. Texas A&M's probably a little bit better than a 7 seed. So 7-10 matchup for Penn State. North Carolina did not make it. They also declined the NIT invitation. The brackets are out. Where do you want to go? What do you want to start with? Do you want to make fun of me? You want to talk about Penn State?
No, we'll start with this, and I think we have an asset coming about it here this afternoon. I don't know. Well, Penn State had not been in the tournament since 2011 when Taylor Battle was there, we had talked about. Pitt is also in. Pitt had a run maybe the first decade of the 2000s when Jamie Dixon was there, that they were a consistent Sweet 16 team, Elite 8 team. I don't think they ever made a Final Four, but they were. And then he left, and they've fallen on hard times. So the fact that both of them are in, it at least hasn't happened in over a decade, and it may be way more than that.
Sure.
So for Pennsylvania, usually we have the Villanovas and the Temples, and it's been a long time since the two big schools have both been in, and they both have terrible TV viewing time slots.
Yeah.
Well, I guess Pitt's isn't terrible. Pitt's is at 9:10 on Tuesday night, but Penn State's the 9:55 game on Thursday.
Yeah.
They're the next to last game of the evening. So I think schools should have a 2-hour delay on Friday.
Interesting. State College might.
They should. State College definitely should.
Yeah.
And like I know in Philadelphia they just did it for the Super Bowl, and I get it. You say the Super Bowl is different, but I would also argue that the Eagles make the Super Bowl way more often than Penn State makes March Madness. So
it's almost equal in the 2000s, right? I think the Eagles have been there twice. No,
this is 3, hasn't it?
I've lost track.
Because they lost to New England.
I also lose track of when the McNabb era was. Was that pre-2000 or early 2000?
No. That was it was in the 2000s.
Okay.
But anyway, be that as it may, it's just one of those aspects that it's just a tough break. If it was prime time, but Duke's prime time, and they're scheduling accordingly.
I think just those 2 days, Thursday, Friday, people are going to stay. Like, it's what you do. You stay up, you figure it out.
You figure
people will adjust.
Yes.
The people in Pennsylvania that want to watch Penn State and Pitt will figure
it's too bad if you have a kid in 5th grade who likes basketball, who's a Penn State, I mean, nobody's Penn State basketball fans until now. They're Penn State football fans, Penn State wrestling fans. But you have a 5th grader that wants to stay up and watch the game.
Right.
Then he's going to school late on Friday. So anyway, be that as it may, but they both could win. Pitt's got Mississippi State. It's one of the 11-11 games. They're Tuesday night. Yeah. So what's neat about Pitt is when they're on, they're the only game on. Mm-hmm. And historically, that matchup, the extra game on Tuesday, can be very, very helpful because you've got the jitters out. Sure. And I think we've talked about this last year. There is very often a team that makes a run because the teams that show up Thursday are like, oh my God, we're here, but the nerves are there. And if you're playing against a team who it was an 11-11 matchup, they're very even, they've already had success, guys have made shots, guys have played well, the nerves are over.
Yep. And
now you're like, so you don't want to be in that game, but if you survive that game, now all of a sudden you have an advantage.
Yeah.
And if Pitt could win that one, they could certainly win. Wasn't it UCLA?
That did what?
Didn't they go all the way to the championship game out of that?
VCU did.
VCU made a run. There have been multiple teams that made a run. I thought when UCLA went to the Final Four and lost to Gonzaga a couple years ago,
Maybe.
I thought they were in that game too.
No, it's possible.
If you win that, it's an advantage.
Yeah.
So
No, I agree.
So Pitt has a chance, but they both have tough draws, and they're both late.
They are. Real classy UNC. I think UNC made the right choice.
I don't disagree with you.
I don't think they should go to the NIT.
I agree.
I think a lot of those kids, their NIL deals, things like that, they are not going this is going to sound stupid. They're not amateurs. Like, they're professionals.
Right.
And the idea that they're going to go to the NIT and try as hard as they can, it's not a real thing.
And they even know
it's not.
They're North Carolina of all schools has nothing to gain. Didn't
Nothing.
Penn State win the NIT?
I don't remember.
You
You always ask me these obscure
I think there's a
questions.
banner.
Okay.
And I go to a Penn State basketball game every year.
Yeah.
Essentially. I think they won the NIT.
Yeah.
Whatever. So for those schools that are kind of trying to be on the rise,
Sure.
great. If you're North Carolina, if you go in and lose, it looks even worse. And if you win, they're like, oh, great, you won the NIT.
I would defend the NIT thing like this too. It is literally called the National Invitation Tournament. Do you know what you're allowed to do with invitations? You're allowed to turn them down. It's literally in the name of the tournament. You are allowed to, like, when someone sends you an invite to something and it says yes, no, RSV, like, you are allowed to say no. You do not have to go.
See, I thought it stood for the no interest tournament.
That too, which is also another reason they shouldn't go. Here, I mean, they have a young group coming in. Most of these guys will be gone after this year. It's just not, there's just not a lot to gain if you're North Carolina.
I'm with you.
Ever. It's just not.
I'm with you.
It's not worth it. Duke fans are loving this, by the way, and I would just like to remind them that we literally ruined Coach K's career. Literally,
yeah, you ruined it.
4 months ago, we literally ruined it.
You ruined it.
I love and hate the Penn State team. Just so exciting, infuriating, and scrappy, and infuriating, and tenacious, and infuriating. Ugh, it's awesome. They are very unique. They're fun to watch. I remember this, and I'm going to take a little credit. Do you remember I came in early in the fall, and I said to you, I was like, I've watched Penn State play twice, and they are so much fun. Do you remember me coming in and telling you that? I was like, they shoot threes. They switch everything. They're smaller. I was like, they are a ton of fun and exciting to watch. And the Big Ten tournament proved that. Like, they are exciting. I'm sure they're infuriating if you're a Penn State fan, but they are unbelievably fun to watch.
I was talking to a guy whose wife is a big basketball fan, and she hates when what's his name? Jalen Pickett just backs the guy down like it's 1976.
It's ingenious.
And I'm like, that's just old school playground basketball. And it's so boring and stupid and simple, but I think it's great because it's from a bygone era, and he just backs you down, turn around jumper.
And I'm not Michael Shrewsbury, so maybe this isn't part of the plan. I noticed during the Big Ten tournament, they would very rarely do it in the first half. And then the second half, it was just like, go to work. Like, it was just Jalen Pickett. And I think, too, if you're a college coach, like, you know it's coming, but it's hard, like, when you don't see it in the first half, and then you go into halftime, and you don't get to kind of like, hey, this is what worked against it, this is what didn't. And then all of a sudden, you come out in the second half, and your point guard's getting posted up by Jalen Pickett, and all of a sudden, like, you don't have a halftime. Like, you don't have time to figure it out or adjust. Like, you're trying to do it on the fly. Just little things like that make Penn State really, really interesting.
The other thing I'd heard, and this was early in the year, and I don't know if the stat still stands, but Pickett was the only guy in the country who was 17.7 rebounds, 7 assists, averaged that per game. And when you're the only guy in the country to do something like that, the 17, 7, and 7 is a big deal.
Yes.
And so, yeah, it is fun. And it is a rare, just think of how many kids, 2011, think of how many Penn State students have gone their entire academic life at Penn State and never got to see a March Madness game.
Yeah.
And now these kids not only saw a Big Ten final, how about this stat? Did you catch this one? Penn State has now been in more Big Ten conference championship games than Indiana.
All time?
All time. Indiana's been in one.
That's hard to fathom. It's hard to believe, actually.
Because I heard it during the semifinal game when Penn State was playing Indiana. Because they said, that Indiana's only been there once. I think it was 0-1.
Okay. Okay.
And Penn State had been there once
But wasn't a lot of Indiana's success before the Big Ten?
before the Big Ten tournament, but it's still been around for 20 some years now.
No, I get it.
It's
but
not
they
that new.
They haven't been very good for a lot of those.
No,
20
I'm with you.
years.
But it's still, you would never think that, because their school, Purdue's been up and down, but Purdue's, won the championship however many times, but not even to win it, just to get there.
Sure.
So I thought that was a neat stat. Now Penn State has more than Indiana in basketball.
Yeah, no, it's pretty crazy. Do you have a pick? Do you have a favorite?
No, it's a wide open year. I know Alabama's.
Remember in college football, I was saying to you, I was like, I don't think teams are very good. Like, I don't know how many teams are very good. I think it's the same thing happening. Like everyone's like,
let me ask you this.
Everyone in football, remember everyone in football was like, it's wide open. And I was like, yeah, but I just don't think, same thing in basketball. Everyone's like, wide open. I don't think teams are very good right now.
Well, let me ask you this. And this is, because you're the right person to ask. Has the 30-second shot clock eliminated the post game from a standpoint that you don't have enough time to run something, feed the post, refeed the post, that it's made everything a high pick and roll, and that it just becomes high pick and roll, shoot more threes, and the traditional, I say traditional, just has it changed basketball that much? If we had a 45-second shot clock, would it improve the game?
No, I think so. I think you'd be going backwards. I think the bigger thing for colleges right now is like the kids are bigger and the court is way smaller, and it just clouts everything. And it
is congested. There's no doubt about that.
And not to like make it about Penn State again, but like that is the beauty of Penn State is like Shrewsbury put 5 shooters on the floor and he posts up somebody that is not used to defending a post up. And he basically says like, come help, come help. Because if you help, we're just going to throw it out to a shooter. Penn State the reason Penn State made as far as it is, they were able to manipulate the one thing that almost every college team struggles with, which is every player has gotten bigger, faster, stronger, and the court has stayed the same size. And Penn State figured out a way to make the court feel bigger than what it actually is. That is the difference. So I actually don't think it has as much to do with taking 5 seconds off of the clock. I think it has way more to do with the fact that, like no offense to Bobby Hurley. He was a phenomenal basketball player. Bobby Hurley, he would be in the bottom 1% now of college athletes as far as like size, stature, weight, like all that stuff. Those dudes everyone's bigger now. I mean, you got point guards that are 6'8", it's just, there's no room to operate, and it makes it feel, you're like, how are these guys not getting in the lane? How are they not getting a good shot? It's like, because there's nowhere to go. Like there's just, it's packed in. Virginia runs the pack line. Other teams have run it too, where they just pack it in and keep you in front of you. And like college kids miss shots. Pros don't. So it makes for a very congested, convoluted game. I would say the shot clock has very little to do with it. My opinion.
Okay.
Just my opinion.
And you could be right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
So you do have a pick? You don't have a pick. It's okay if you don't.
It's all right if you don't. Like Alabama. I know they've been in the news for all the wrong reasons lately, but they're such a good story because they're a football school through and through. And
I actually think that's why they're going to win.
And why? Because
I think they're going to use it, us against them. Like the only people who know what actually happened is in this locker room. It's us against them. I actually think it's benefiting.
And they're good.
No, yes, they're good, but you need like a chip. Like you need I remember when Syracuse made the run with Carmelo Anthony and Jerry McNamara, they were not preseason top 25. And so the chip, the whole run was nobody believed in us. No one thought we could do it. And that is like the thing. Like you need the thing. Like when I was coaching at Loyal Sock, we were the public school. And that was the thing. And even though people around here would never view us as underdogs, for us, we were. Like once we went to states, we were. So if you're like, when you look at these teams, like what is the thing? I actually think that's what makes Duke really scary. Not everyone's like, well, they're on a roll. And I get that. That's not, I'm scared of Duke because like for them, it's like, we can do it without K. Like no one, like we started off slow and everyone started throwing us under the bus. And is John Shire really ready for this? And yada, yada, yada. And now all of a sudden it's like, no, we can do it and we'll show them. I just look for teams that have that thing. Like what is the thing?
This is my philosophy in this. I think one of the things that is very underrated about this is when you look through teams' regular season, like I'll give you one, Iowa. When you look at Iowa, and I think they're in the 8-9 game.
Okay.
Look at what Iowa did at home and look what Iowa did on the road. And they were night and day.
Mhm.
So you take, all of a sudden, you take these teams that thirst on their home court advantage, or Duke. They just won. They didn't play at home, but they were in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Mhm.
So now all of a sudden you take Duke and you put them on the road. And I know it's neutral, but
Right.
wherever they go, people are rooting against Duke, except for the people that traveled with Duke.
Right.
So now all of a sudden, when you don't have the home crowd, you're not getting the same calls you've got. And there are schools that need it, and there are schools that don't care.
Sure.
And those are the ones, that's another reason why maybe Alabama, because at Alabama, it's like Penn State. I went to Penn State. I watched them play Michigan State. It's not packed. Now, Penn State was better at home on the road than on the road, but they threw some clunkers up. But these schools that, if you're Kentucky or Kansas or places where people are or Duke or Carolina, home court is huge.
Yeah.
You get some of these other ones, does Pitt care that they're playing in Dayton? I don't know. But these are some other aspects. Auburn essentially is a home game. I think they're in Birmingham. And so whoever they play, Auburn and I can't remember. But like, that's not fair. Pitt plays in Dayton.
Yeah.
And so who they got? Mississippi State? Who's going to have more fans in Dayton, Ohio? Pitt or Mississippi State?
Sure.
So there are some of those scheduling. You might, while you're figuring out your bracket, unless you're like me and you figure it out in 7 minutes. But look where it's at, because some teams are going to have great home courts
Sure.
that they don't deserve, or it's a lot closer. So geography plays a little bit into it too. I have one more stupid question for you, because you're a well-versed basketball guy. Penn State just played 4 games in 4 days.
Yeah.
They are exhausted.
Mhm.
I wish they didn't play till Friday. They play Thursday. Does
Yeah.
one day matter?
Not at that point. I think if you were talking about the difference between like a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, by Thursday, it's like, let's do it again. Like it's, especially at this point in the season. I mean, that's the hardest part with a lot of this stuff, like coaching college or high school. You get to a point in your season where you're just trying to you're not trying to fix stuff. It's just fine tuning, right? Like, how do we make sure we're still ready without wearing ourselves down? Especially Penn State. They really only play 6-7 guys, like truly.
Well, that's why I was worried about just the fatigue and the body recovery.
The problem for Penn State, though, is like if you go 4 days, 5 days without playing, like now you're out of it a little bit. Like you've lost some of your condition.
Because you never have that during the season.
Yes. So there is a sense of like you want recovery, but you don't want to just sit around. Like the hardest part is coming up with a practice plan where you're getting reps, but you're not like wasting yourself.
Okay, here's my last question, and nobody else is listening to us now except us two. So Pitt, they find out who they play yesterday at 6:45.
Mm-hmm.
In 48 hours, they need to travel to. Now, fortunately, their travel is short, but they have to make travel accommodations. They have to do all this stuff, and now they have to scout a team who they haven't played. They didn't know who they were going to play. Like in the NFL, if you're like, we're going to play this team or this team, you can scout them both.
Sure.
You can't scout 20 teams who you might match up with.
No.
So how much game planning is going to go into this game in 48 hours? Or how much is it going to be like, this is what we do and we're going to do it?
No, I think a way more game planning probably goes into what you think. I think the hardest part is like at this level, there's somebody who is all they did yesterday was plan what they're going to eat, plan where they're going to stay, plan like the head scout didn't even think about bus scheduling. The head scout didn't even think about the practice plan. Like the only thing the head scout did is he buried himself in a Synergy platform, which is how they scout all the film. It's called Synergy. He buried himself in Synergy film, and it's already broken down. A lot of people don't know this. So in NCAA basketball, every school uses Synergy. So let's say you and I were coaching a team, and we found out yesterday that we were going to play Dartmouth. Every single game of Dartmouth is already on Synergy, broken down by possession, broken down by player, broken down by quarter. I mean, everything is already there. So they're like, it goes up on the screen. We're playing Dartmouth. There is no like, we got to call this person. We got to get this film. We got to do that. It's already there.
Okay.
So they are diving into this probably a little more than what you think, because the legwork,
Because it's already laid out.
in our world of like small high school sports, or even when I helped at Mansfield, like you find out you're playing somebody. I mean, the first thing you're doing is picking up the phone. Hey, do you have this team? Do you have that team? Do you have that? All of that is eliminated.
So they've been handed the notes for the class.
Oh my god!
And they're just like, now
their
just
only job now is to just keep
try to figure
watching it and watching it and watching it and deciding what do you want to do. So they're diving into a lot of this stuff, and that's every team. Every team has Synergy, and you have to upload your game to it.
Okay. See, that's more than I would have, because in 2 days, obviously the teams by Thursday, Friday, they'll know them like the back of their hand.
Yeah.
But for this one, where you just found out, and that's because even for the next round, you can have assistant coaches, because if you win, you know you're either getting this team or this team.
Yeah.
So you can already start to break down if we play this team, if we play that team. But going in for tomorrow in Pitt, I knew it was a unique situation.
And every team's different. So some teams will have the bottom of their bench will do it. Some teams have like their own separate practice squads. Like they have kids that are students on campus, and they are actually part of a team that comes in and scrimmages against the Division I team, right?
Okay.
So for example, let's say we have our team, we're playing Dartmouth. Our green team, our blue team, whatever we call that squad, that practice squad, not only are they learning everything Dartmouth does the next couple of days, they're already learning what the other two teams on the other side of the bracket do. So when we win on Friday, they're already ready to prep us on Saturday for who we might play on Sunday.
Do those kids get money?
So Sports Illustrated actually did a story about this like decades ago, because one of the first people to ever do it was Pat Summitt.
I was going to say Pat Summitt did it with guys for the girls team.
And these guys would do this where like the crazy part is like if you're a Tennessee women's player, you have to know your plays, you have to know your philosophies, what Summit's giving you, and then you have to know the other team that you're going to play against, their tendencies, whatever it is Summitt wants you to know. If you are on the practice squad at Tennessee, you not only have to know what the girls are doing, because you got to try to take away their tendencies so they get a good, like, you can't just play them straight up.
Right.
You got to play it like the other team.
The other team can play it.
So you have to scout your own team, know all of their stuff. You would have to know the stuff that the team you're playing on Friday. And at the same time, you're already learning two teams that you might end up playing on Sunday, one of which won't ever matter, and the other one might not matter if you don't win.
You lose.
So you're literally learning 4 teams, plays, systems, tendencies, philosophies, all at once. I mean, it's way more of a mental challenge than even what like the starting point guard on the actual team is like trying to do. Mentally.
Do they get money, scholarship?
I would imagine most of them get something.
Okay.
Yeah. Especially now with the NIL stuff and things like that.
Well, nowadays, yes. But I remember when Pat Summitt brought in guys too.
Yeah. So we actually had, I don't know if you remember this or not, but Sean Jensen.
You told me this.
So Sean Jensen was on the state title team at Loyal Sock. He was a starting forward. He actually does it for Pitt, for the women's team at Pitt. And then Derek G., who was an all-state punter at Loyal Sock, he actually does it for the women's team at Penn State. So if there's actually like a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, people probably don't even realize they know some athletes that actually do this for some of the programs across the country that are going to compete in the next week.
Do they just do it to meet girls?
I think it's a little bit of both, right? So it's funny, what they told me is that it's way better than intramurals. Because they said when you go to intramurals, it's pickup, it's street ball, it's people are just throwing stuff around it. They go, this feels like what I grew up doing. Like there's a plan and there's a strategy and there's a philosophy and there's teammates and like you're building camaraderie.
Do they get yelled at?
What's that?
Do they get yelled at by the coach?
There is. So I do know most schools have a scout.
A coach for them.
They take one assistant And that assistant's job is to coach the scout team. Like that is what they do.
Like, dude, I don't need this. I'm an accounting major. Like, I'm just here to help. Don't get off my back.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really fascinating like dynamic of this world that most people never see or consider, I guess is what I'm saying.
No, I knew that Summit had done it, and you had told me that Jensen is doing it at Pitt.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I don't know. It's fascinating to me that they can't find. I don't know. I still think the best. I think you could go to a campus like Pitt, and I think you could find 5 guys who are not on Pitt's basketball team that would beat the girls' team in a pickup game.
Yeah, probably. What are you trying to say?
That I think the girls would lose to this team.
Yeah, well, they would. I mean, it would be a very competitive game, but they would probably lose. Yeah.
Okay. I just wonder how competitive. I'm trying to figure out how competitive it is.
At that level, it's more competitive than you think it is.
Maybe. And the girls are just so much bigger than when I was there. I mean, you watch a women's college basketball game now, and they have guards that are 5'9", 5'10", but they are 6'2", 6'4", 6'5". Like, it's such.
And you have to remember too, like they're in a practice, their job. I'm trying to think how to say this. You don't necessarily want them to win. Like as a coach, like you're trying to challenge them in an environment where most days, if you didn't bring a practice squad in of
they
males,
crush.
The first team would dominate maybe the second team, depending on your team structure and how it works.
No, I get it. It is fascinating.
Yeah, it is. It's really neat.
All right.
Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all of your local news.
When we are back, I will have the national champion for you.
Oh, is that what you're doing?
Yes. And once again, I'll say it now because we'll get it out of the way. You know who's not winning?
Who?
Gonzaga.
Okay. I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark. You know who's not winning? North Carolina. I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Lucina. We'll see you guys on Wednesday.
Later.